You are listening to the Conquering Everest podcast, episode number 1. Hello and welcome. My name is Brian Talor, and this is the Conquering Everest podcast. I just want to take a moment and thank you, whoever you are, wherever you are, for tuning in and listening here to this here podcast, spending a little bit of your day with me. This, especially with this episode number 1, right? The kickoff. It's finally here, and I say finally because this has been a long time coming. Matter of fact, the original concept for Conquering Everest came to me a couple years ago when I gave a talk, and I titled that talk Conquering Everest. And what I found interesting as I was preparing to deliver this message, and I was thinking about, all of us, right? We have fears, we have insecurities, we have challenges in our lives, we have these obstacles. And I felt like, I had a pretty good grasp on how to tackle those types of challenges. But I did a little bit of research, and I started reading about Sir Edmund Hillary. And in 1953, he became one of the first of two men. Him and his partner at the time, his climbing partner. I think they call him Sherpas. I'm not sure. But they were the first two to successfully summit over 29,000 feet to reach the peak of Mount Everest. And at the time, it was considered the highest point on Earth. Now, he had done what 12 expeditions before him failed to do, including an expedition that he was a part of. So he attempted to climb this mountain. He failed to climb this mountain. But then he took a step back and said he's going to do it again. And he did it again, and he successfully conquered Everest. And since then, if we think about, since 1953, and this number is probably much higher now, but at least at the time when I was doing my research, over 4,000 people have successfully summited Everest since Sir Edmund Hillary did it that first time. And he had a quote. That it went something like, "It is not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves." And when I read that quote and I started thinking about what my message was going to be for that speech, it was like how true that is. Now, this isn't a podcast about climbing mountains, or at least not about climbing Mount Everest. It is a podcast about climbing mountains, but the type of mountains that we're going to talk about here on this podcast would be the ones that we face, right? Us regular people that have no desire to climb 29,000 feet in the air. Maybe some of you do. I don't know. But those fears, those insecurities, the challenges that we face in our lives, right? We face it in our relationships. We face them in our finances. We face them in our careers. We face them as parents. And some of those mountains seem insurmountable. And, a lot of us bow out. I remember for years, I would not ride roller coasters with loops. I wouldn't. I was terrified. I was afraid, that I was going to be the one roller coaster car that the seatbelt would come loose, or the shoulder harness would break, and I was gonna fly out and become a bug on a windshield somewhere. But for years I wouldn't do it, and it was a self-imposed fear that was in my head. And then when I finally rode my first roller coaster with a loop, and I was an adult by this point in time, it was one of the most funnest things that I've done. Is fun is the real word? I don't know, but I really enjoy. I was like, for how many years have I avoided this? These loop-de-loop roller coasters. This is amazing. And then as I got into being a parent and my young sons, taking them to the Six Flags or Kings Islands, and they wanted to ride these massive roller coasters. They weren't just loop-de-loops. They were massive, peaks and valleys. And, of course, as a father, I don't want to look like a chicken, so I rode them. And as terrified as I may have been on that first ride on the roller coaster, once I got off, I was like, man, that was amazing. And I wanted to do it again and again. And oftentimes in life, that's what I find, as I've been afraid or uncertain of my ability to conquer a mountain. I find that once I start climbing it, right? Once I start not brick by brick, but one handful of rock at a time, as I start to climb that rock, that mountain, it gets a little easier. And once you get to that top, right, you've defeated it, and you're like, wow, okay, that wasn't too bad. Like, I was a lot stronger than I thought, or I was a lot more talented than I thought, or whatever the case may be. We each have those giants, those mountains that stand before us, and when we come face to face with them, we have really two choices. We can pull up our pants and tuck in our shirts and start climbing, or we can sit there and we could stare and look up and be fearful and afraid of what might happen. The what if, right? You get into the what if game. What if I fall? Well, what if you don't? What if I cut myself? Well, what if you don't? It's that what if game. And so the story of Sir Edmund Hillary, and it certainly fascinated me that he was able to become one of the first two men to successfully conquer the mountain. But then once he did it, it was like no big deal. Everybody started conquering it, right? And then they'd move on to bigger and tougher mountains, and whatever the case may be. And that's really, what I guess my challenge, not only for myself, but one of my purposes in life, is to help others realize that, yeah, those mountains, they're big and they're scary and they may seem insurmountable, but as Les Brown would say, we all have greatness within, and we all have the ability to conquer those mountains. I've conquered so many mountains in my life. I've conquered debt, not once, but twice. And, hey, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to have to conquer it again because I've got myself in a little bit of debt financially. But, I conquered divorce, which was part of the reason that I've got to conquer my finances once more. But, my fear of public speaking, there was a time in my life, for most of my life, from childhood up until in my 40s, or, around, I guess, the age of 43, that I was terrified. I was terrified to stand in front of a group of, 3 or more people and try to speak to them. But what I found is through my day job, right, it became an expectation and a desire, and it was one that the boss would come to me and say, hey, Brian, I need you to give this presentation. And instantly, anxiety, fear would begin to grip me. My chest would get heavy, and I would reluctantly say, okay, yeah, yes sir, whatever you need, sir. And then I would go and just be a nervous wreck in front of these people. And so there came a day where I was like, you know what, that's probably my top fear, and I need to conquer this. I need to overcome this Everest, this mountain. And I did. I joined Toastmasters, which is a worldwide, speaking organization, or teaching organization, the developing leaders and speakers, and I joined that. And I would say by the time I was given my third speech or third presentation in front of an audience, I had realized, this isn't so bad, right? The big scary roller coaster with the high peaks and valleys and the loop-de-loops wasn't so bad. And it's opened, once I overcame that fear, it's really opened up a world of possibility for me. And so that's what I hope to do with this podcast. And I really hope to, not only share my experiences in life with everyone, but, get some folks on here to share their experiences as well. And, if there's one message, if there's one thing I want anybody that listens to this podcast to walk away with, that is you have the ability to do whatever you want to do. And I know that sounds like a dad talking to his kid, right? Hey, son, you can do it. You can be anything you want to be as long as you're willing to put in the work. But that's true. It's true. You got to put in the work. And you know what? You're going to be scared at times. And you're going to have to face that fear. You're going to have to step up to it and, throw the 2 middle fingers right in its face and do it anyways. And you're going to learn that with every step forward, it gets it's a little less scary, and your confidence grows that much more. Life for me, just to share a little bit about myself, has never been easy. I mean, since I was a kid, I've suffered, in my prime ages, right? So I'm talking adolescent to teenager. I mean, I've suffered emotional abuse. I was bullied at school, sometimes at home. I, had a lot of self-esteem issues and self-image issues into my adult years. I was afraid of a lot. I was afraid of commitment. I was afraid of having children. I was afraid of living on my own. I mean, there was a lot of things that, a lot of fears in my early years. And as I got older, and I hit around the age of 40, that's when the depression and anxiety started to set in. Now, I didn't realize it at the time that's what I was suffering with. I still suffer from it today. Here I'm in my mid 40s. I still deal with anxiety and depression. There are days where it controls me, and there are days when I'm able to control it. But at the age of 40, to start dealing with it, I didn't know what it was. I just thought, I don't know what I thought. I was like, what is going on? Why do I feel this way? And then once I started to realize what was going on and realize that, hey, I may be depressed. Hey, I may have anxiety. I didn't want to admit it, right? To me, there was this stigma, right? If I said I was depressed, they're gonna call me crazy, and they're gonna want, 30 years ago, if you told a person, if you had anxiety and depression, they'd stick you in an asylum, right? 1950s and 60s, people were thrown in there all the time, labeled as crazy. So, I guess I had that stigma for many years, and it wasn't until, even this past year that I finally, decided I was going to seek help. And I was going to end the stigma by, being vulnerable and admit, hey, I'm depressed at times. I have depression. I suffer. Hey, I suffer from anxiety. And you know what? It's okay, because I'm fighting that battle. And I'm climbing that mountain, and one day I will summit. I will successfully conquer that Everest, and I look forward to that day. And when that day comes, then we'll celebrate. But as of right now, I'm climbing. Right, I'm still climbing. I'm going after it full charge. I've gotten the help that I've needed to get, and I'm doing the things I need to do. And so, like I said, my message to everyone is just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to start climbing. I find, that once I conquer, kind of like Sir Edmund Hillary, once I conquer one Everest, I have this renewed sense of strength and personal worth, and I'm ready. I'm like, okay, all right, that wasn't so bad. Now, what's the next biggest peak that I need to summit? And I start, I look for those challenges at times. They, some mountains are small. You conquer them fairly quickly, and some mountains are massive, and it's going to take a long time. And it's going to, you're going to need help. You're not going to be able to conquer all these mountains alone. Sometimes you need a little bit of help, and that's okay. There ain't nothing wrong with asking for help. Plenty of podcasts, plenty of books, plenty of resources out there for all of us, because I guarantee you, whatever mountain you are face to face with right now in your life, somebody has already successfully conquered it. And now it's just a matter of having the courage, and not only the courage to begin your climb, but the courage to ask for help, because, like I said, others have done it, and they have the resources and they have the knowledge. So this here episode 1, I hope this to be the first of many episodes. The plan is for this podcast to be around for quite a time. I'm actually writing a book right now that will, a lot of what you hear on this podcast will be in that book. Some nights it'll just be me here talking with you, and other nights I hope to have a guest and conduct some interviews and, get as much knowledge and, strength and encouragement from others as we can, as we go on these journeys together, and, do our best and conquer those mountains that are before us. And, I have no doubt in my mind that I'll be able to do that. You'll be able to do that. And, together, hey, we're an even stronger team. So, with that, I think, episode 1, this was just kind of my introduction to everyone, kind of share a little bit about me and where I'm coming from and what this podcast is about. Be sure that wherever you are listening to this podcast, I'd certainly appreciate a share, a like, a comment, a subscribe, whatever the case may be, wherever you may find this. Right now, my podcast is being hosted through Podbean, so if you go to conqueringeverest.com, it will take you to my site with all the episodes and goodies that you need to get your fix, and who knows, we'll see where this thing goes. This is my next big challenge, my next big mountain to climb, that giant, because like I said, this has been on my mind for quite a while, and so now I'm finally doing it, right? There's no perfect time to get started. Well, there is a perfect time to get started. That's right now. No matter how, you could try forever to be perfect at something, and guess what? It's not going to happen. And this podcast, it's going to be pre-recorded and heavily edited, I'm sure. That's just the way I'd love to be able to get each episode in one take, but who knows? We'll see. I will get there. Someday, one day, I will get there. I will be able to get this. This has been pretty much one take, but I'm sure I'm rambling. So, anyways, I'm glad that you've tuned in. I'm so very thankful that you're spending a little bit of time with me. I hope you will subscribe, visit the website, bookmark it, come back often. And I know as I've gone through my challenges, there were times where I would scroll through many a podcast just looking for that friendly voice. I'm not looking to make this thing overly perfect or polished or anything. You know what? It's just, I just want to connect with you. I'd love to hear your stories out there. I'd love to share my stories and get the stories of others. So, sometimes we just need a friendly voice in the night air, right? And somebody that can help us through whatever we're going through at that point in time. And I know I've looked for it at various times in my life as I've been going through hard times and challenges. I've always looked for that one voice, somebody that can kind of carry me through whatever I'm dealing with at the moment. And hopefully I can give that a little bit of that to you all. So that is going to do it for episode number 1. I certainly hope you return for episode number 2. Like I said, please visit the website, conqueringeverest.com. I will have all the information as far as contact and information. We'll get all that updated on the site. So if you want to reach out, want to connect, and just, learn this together. So, all right. Well, from me to you, I thank you, and I hope to talk again. So thanks. This is Brian. I'll see you next time.